Hello, hello. Welcome to Fempreneur True Confessions podcast. I'm Angelique.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura. Um, and I own a virtual assistant project management agency that helps small business owners get the help they need behind the scenes. So much
Yep.
fun. Yeah.
We do have fun. Laura and I
We
do really
do.
similar things, but instead of competing, we collaborate with each other. And we've been doing this podcast together for over 2 years. We're going on 3 years. This will be our third year in October. It's been fabulous.
Yes.
But Laura came to me and she's like, hey, and she knew I love podcasts. She reeled me in. Um,
So,
and I was like, yes. And so I started planning it, and took about, I would say 2 or 3 months, like working on it a little at a time. And then I was like, all right, you ready? She's like, well, aren't we gonna do this or that? But finally, after about 6 months of planning, we hit play, and we got a guest the following week,
mhm,
books right away, right?
right.
And it was perfect divine timing. I don't think that we waited too long. I don't think we should have waited any long. I think it was perfect.
Right. We're always in the right timing.
Yeah. Our guests self-schedule and the topics just flow together so well. But yeah, we decided that we weren't seeing the type of modeling out there for female entrepreneurs that we were looking for. Sorry, I'm going to get further away from the camera because I'm a little sunburned. Um,
You're in the only
and
place in the country that has sun right now.
I'm in
Sorry.
Florida. That's what we do. Um, so we weren't seeing it, so we created it. And the goal here is to create a community for female entrepreneurs to be vulnerable, to be honest with each other, to help lift each other up, to collaborate, not to compete, not to tear each other down, but to help each other, and really build a sisterhood. So here we are, and we've had guests, very few open spots, or people times when we didn't have guests scheduled,
Mhm.
and when we didn't, we're like, okay, we won't do one this week, but they've been few and far between. And right now we're booked out through May into June. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It's
We're
nice.
really enjoying it. And the guests have been fabulous. And today is, I always say this, I say
Yeah.
this a lot, but we do have a great guest today.
Mhm. And I remember her pre-interview. So
Yeah.
we were talking before, and um, she's let us know that she even did more research and she's added more to her stuff, and so she's got some great stuff to share with us today. So, Haze Schepmeyer is a life event transitions mediator dedicated to activating flexible approaches across physical, emotional, and mental experiences. With an
Mm.
authentic blend of compassion and expertise, Haze helps to guide accountable individuals through some of life's most challenging transitions by empowering them to navigate change with grace and resilience. Welcome, Haze. We're so glad to have you here. I
Yes.
was excited for your show after we met you on the first
Thank
meeting. We had
you.
so much fun, and you were just like, you were so energizing. We got off that meeting, and her and I were great for the rest of the day. Like, we were getting things going. I was like, oh, she just gave us all kinds of energy.
Yes. Yes. Especially after, I think it was a day where we were doing several guest pre meet and greet pre interviews, and one of the guests wasn't a good fit, and that's a rarity. I think that might be one of the only times, maybe one or two, that we've met someone and been like, yeah, I don't think we're a good fit. And when we mentioned that, or maybe I think maybe it was something you said, it was like, oh my gosh, that's completely different than the other, person. The mindset and the view that you had, and it was so refreshing. So
Yeah,
thank you for joining us today.
thank you.
Thank you for having me, Laura and Angelique. It is amazing to be here and have this conversation.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So today we're kind of going to let Hayes have the floor. She has a really cool story. It is not, it's something that we have heard before, right? This transition, this mutation or transmutation, maybe transformation. I think all of that, and I think all of it's really relevant right now because this is going to be a big year for transformation for a lot of people, especially women.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. So I'll just jump right in. So to follow
Yeah.
up on, yeah, thank you. So to follow up on Angelique's introduction, a lot of what I want to talk about today in terms of starting a business is the idea that this was not ever on my path. This was not on my radar. I had no intention of ever becoming an entrepreneur, but that's in fact where I ended up. And it's been an incredible learning experience. A lot of growth has been possible, but knowing the content of your podcast, I thought it would be possibly valuable for me to share a little bit about how I've been navigating those transitions. And so I
Yeah.
actually kind of looked up 5 pillars or 5 stories that have happened to me along the way, 5 struggles, 5 opportunities to see things
Yes.
differently.
Opportunities.
Yeah. So I can start and you guys can just jump in, but definitely having that back and forth is the point of these conversations.
Absolutely.
So again, the first in having lost what I thought was the best job ever, that's how I ended up having to start a business. And that exactly that moment in time, the first struggle was accepting what is happening and what is not happening. So for me, it was I'd been with an organization for 14 years. It was government funded, supporting kids with special needs and their families. And as a result of government funding cuts, 300 of the 800 staff were going to be laid off. We were given 3 months notice, but it was still one of those in the moment, accepting what's happening. I will be losing a job. I have a house. My parents live with me. I have a mortgage, et cetera, et cetera. And this is happening. What's not happening is time is not stopping. I don't get a redo. So in that moment, the first struggle was accepting what's happening and what is not happening, and then looking forward. Again, I'm committed to a forward focused approach in that sense, where it's easy to feel stuck, but if we can continue to look ahead. So in looking ahead at what I would have to do to make the best job ever, now that I was losing the best job ever, that conversation came actually to looking back in order to look forward. So what I'm going to build, what I decided to do for work was really building on over 20 years of experience as having been a mentor at the University of Toronto. So the idea that I'm going to create something in a situation that I did not choose, but I'm going to leverage experience that I've consistently chosen out of free will. So that kind of gets to the second struggle, where it's that idea that if I've been doing this thing for free for so long, now I'm going to ask for money to do it. How am I going to ask for money?
Oh, that's huge.
Especially when you've helped all these people and you're like, oh, I help. And then all of a sudden you're like, so
now I'm going to lay this. Yeah, so the struggle was really asking for money in a way that felt good, but that honored the work that I was doing. It's really important to recognize the value that we offer depending on our industry and our capacity and the people we are able to support. But that second struggle after having to start a business was being able to ask for money in a way that felt good and packaging the conversation that I've been having. So the second entrepreneurial struggle was really asking for money in the sense of labeling the services, having conversations with people in similar industries, but really that vulnerability in terms of I do something differently, but there's also a bit of overlap. And so being able to label and honor and recognize. So those are my first two struggles on the path.
And I think I even still struggle with that a bit. And I actually was having a conversation with a friend earlier today about how much to charge per hour. And because I'm in the middle of moving and I was looking for help and somebody said, oh, I'm $100 an hour to help you move. And I'm like, geez, Louise, like, sorry, man, I for an hour, like really just to, but then he was like, well, I commend him because he knows his value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was like,
and that's
dang.
important, right? And as much as we talk about that, like we want to be able, and I, as growing up, we're like, we can negotiate anything's negotiable. But I'm not good at that, where I'm like, somebody just says something, I'm like, okay. And I don't want to wiggle them down because it does feel like you're bringing down their worth and accepting that, but you also know like, oh God, I may need cheaper or whatever. So it's very interesting how that is seen. And when people really know their value and have accepted, this is what's going to be.
And the thing is, it's a friend's son. And I'm sure he is worth every penny. He's a very hard worker because I know his mother. And so, but for me, that just felt like a lot for an hour. But also, I'm not that hard. I wish I had a better word for that, but I'm not in a position where I'm desperate for that help.
Mhm.
Um, so if I were desperate for that help, I'm sure I'd fork over that $100 much more quickly than I am right now. So
Mhm.
um, it's the paradigm, right, where we're coming from. But yeah, that so number 2 was, setting those prices, asking for money, labeling the services,
Yeah,
um,
and
and,
really
really go ahead.
really speaking to the value in the exchange, because the idea
Yes.
is that we are offering services that are of value in a particular context, and with that value, now a situation may be a little less stressful for someone. They may be able to navigate things differently as
Mhm.
a result. So it was really a matter of having additional experience and thinking through, again, some things that had never occurred to me, from that place of I do good work and my intention is pure and my intention is focused on being of service. So putting all that together in a practical way ended up
Yeah.
being a continuous conversation. Yes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Well, you
all
can think of
wherever.
your value as it can be very difficult when you're thinking in your value, because especially you said you're coming from nonprofit and working through, and they've gotten or downsized. I came from corporate where your value isn't valued at all. Your worth isn't there in corporate as it is. I know in nonprofits, it can be very hard because a lot of times they want to be able to do more for their employees and for the people that are supporting this big vision that they have, but they're not always able to. So, getting hit that way with it, not only are they not able to do what they want to do, but then also have to downsize in that. I know that can be very trying, even for a nonprofit, especially. And being part of the nonprofit, because you are clearly doing what you loved, which a lot of us don't get to do.
Yeah.
Like, we don't usually all get to that point of where we love to be, so
Yeah.
it's amazing that you were at least able to have that, and then having to change, because I never thought of entrepreneurship when I came out of corporate. Still wasn't thinking about it. But it's very interesting where we go with that, because nonprofit was the first thing I thought of when I was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing your worth and knowing that you can stick to that, I think is one of the hardest things for givers and carers. Somebody who isn't as much of a giver, that's not in their line. Um, Maybe much easier for, but I wouldn't. No, I mean, as a giver, I'm like, I'll give it all away, and then once
Yeah.
I don't have a house, or
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a line in a movie, "This isn't a charity," kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, no, we're not a charity. It I don't know, it just felt kind of derogatory,
Mm.
but I balance it out by doing pro bono work. I work with,
Mhm.
I do work for free, um, almost every single month out of the year for
Yeah.
some project. And typically it is a nonprofit, but not always.
Mhm.
Sometimes there's just somebody who just needs a little help. And I'm like, all right, I got you,
Yeah.
and it always comes back. It always comes back as a
Yeah.
blessing.
Yeah.
And that's not the intent behind it. But if you'll just pay attention, you'll
Mhm.
see that those blessings come back to you. And I think that it's almost feels like a logical evolution for us to go from, like, you were like in this dream job that you absolutely loved. It was fantastic. And then you're like, I'm going to do this forever. I love it so much. And then to have it basically taken away, right? And then you're like, to be able to say, I'm going to I'm going to continue to do what I love my way, my terms.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just pulling in on what both of you have said, that sense of that being able to customize, being able to accommodate, in that sense where there's a declared value per se, I would definitely have a different price or worth than I would for a corporate setting, knowing they have different resources than an educational institution or a not-for-profit. And to Angelique's point, there are times when it just makes sense to meet someone where they are with the resources that they have, and let that kind of come back and move around the way it's supposed to. So we can declare our value, we can speak to the worth, we can recognize the exchange, and make space for the outliers or those circumstances that are sometimes beyond other people's control.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And we help them and they help next. So like, you're a helper, you help them there and they pass it forward. I love that idea always of paying it forward. So
Yep.
it's not, like, we'll pay you back. Like, no. That's never the intent. I don't want you to
Mhm.
do it. I want you to pay that forward. So the
Yep.
next person that needs help that you can help, we reward.
Yes.
And
Indeed.
it's
Yep.
really so important for that because I always feel like if I owe someone and I know I need to pay something forward, it's going to get paid for. So knowing that obligation in my world and that intention of it will get done, that's a great thing because we know knowing it will get done, there will be a pay forward somehow, then more and more people get helped in a way, whether you're directly impacting it or not.
Yep.
Which I
And
love.
that's a perfect segue because my third struggle was the idea of asking for help. So again, in having decided to start a business and having figured out how I would offer my services, how I would package them and prepare them, the question was, okay, so I've never done this before. I don't know how to do a bunch of things. I could learn how to do a bunch of things, but in having those conversations with other entrepreneurs and really establishing a foundation, and to your point, both of you, that there are a lot of people doing similar work, but we all bring particular experiences that make what we do a little different or nuanced compared to
Yeah.
others. So asking for help was the next struggle, not in not having enough people to ask, but in deciding where to start. So sometimes as entrepreneurs, there are actually 50 things that I know need to be done, but if I were to prioritize them and recognize that I only have this many hours in a day, I also do yoga, I also volunteer. So asking for help was the next realm of kind of conversation that I had to dive into along this path.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. So asking for help, period, right?
Asking for help, period. Internal help, external help. So really asking myself, and again, looking back and knowing the skills that I plan to bring forward, the productive and present capabilities. What do I already know how to do? How do I leverage and pull that forward? And then again, recognizing with colleagues who've done this or friends that I've supported in the past, students and alumni I've mentored, what is it that I brought to you? How have you used the conversations we had to move forward? So getting help on the messaging to describe what I do, because a lot of what I do, I don't describe well. I do it well, but I don't describe it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, so internal help from my own source, but also external help was an
I
important
love
thing.
that you said that though, the internal help, because that wasn't what I was thinking. And so I'm glad you mentioned it because when I think of asking for help, that means I am looking for help outside of myself. But it never really occurred to me to be like, okay, let's ask Angelique.
Yes. Yeah.
What would
Yeah.
Angelique do?
Yeah.
Like
And
we're being coached or you're in a group or if you're in meditation, like that is when you think about stuff. But when you're just sitting there in the crux of it and you're like, first thing isn't to go internal. It's,
yeah.
who can
Yeah.
I call outside to
Yeah.
help me?
Yeah, yeah, but there's the value of the focus. So bringing your focus, either realizing pre-existing potential, because we all have skills that we've implemented in some situation. We all have that idea of present and productive capabilities. There are things that we have done. There is capacity that we can leverage, but unless we ask or even ask a friend, what have I done similarly? But really,
Yeah.
there's stuff that we can tap into on a personal level with ourselves, as well as knowing, okay, here's what I've got. Maybe I need to add something to that skill set, and maybe I need to add something that is relevant. But definitely, I found asking myself, being present to what was already there, that was an important way to get help in deciding how to move forward.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then after
So,
asking for help, the fourth step is accepting help. Because a lot
oh,
of the
Even
time
harder.
it's it's harder. It can be harder.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You were in the middle of explaining. I'm like, oh my God, even harder.
No, you go. You go. No, Laura, you go. That's why I said it. Tell us.
Yeah, I guess as a in my personality, it's people offer a lot, and then it's like, no, I don't need it. Somebody else needs it more than I do, has always been my thing. And that's that real mark that I'm like, oh no, it's okay. And I don't know where that technically comes from, but it's so interesting that you say that, because it is one of those things where you're like, and then at times, like even today, I had to stop myself and just be like, okay, like, I'm going to stop fighting it. I'm going to stop arguing back. I'm going to stop finding all the reasons why I don't. Okay. It's just, okay. I just accept. And then,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. And I think for me, what's powerful in accepting help is recognizing someone else's skill and receiving that skill. So a lot of people who've offered help are not doing it because they want to make me feel like I am unqualified, or they're not offering for me to say, no, it's okay. They're offering from a place of sincerity. And that's the same way that we offer help to others. So for sure, being able to accept all the help, and to your point, kind of prioritize, okay, I'll take this help. I'll take this help. This help may not be relevant right now, even though I understand. So again, asking for help is one set of conversations and one struggle, and then accepting the help can be an entirely different but important set of kind of themes and patterns. What do we do? What do we do?
I'm so glad that you differentiated it, because again, I grouped that acceptance into asking. I automatically said, hey, if I'm asking for help, I don't know, I feel like, okay, by asking, that means I am also accepting, but that isn't necessarily true. And they are separate steps, and I really appreciate that you make that differentiation. And Laura, I'm glad you were like, yeah, that's my struggle. Yep. And I've struggled with that as well, just asking for help, because I'm an only child. I'm highly independent, or essentially an only child, highly independent. And so, and I was raised to just be self-sufficient and take care of myself. So asking for help is hard. And then accepting the help, sometimes I figure out a way to not do that.
Yes. Yep. And then a layer on top of what we're all saying is that sometimes accepting the help requires a level of wisdom, because there are hundreds and thousands of people offering help with different strategies and different formulae and different quick steps. And so there's a lot of concern on some people's parts that there's too much help or not enough relevant help. So that idea of accepting help really has an element of wisdom involved, because people will say that they've helped hundreds, but that doesn't mean that the help they're offering is specific to the situation that you're in. And some people feel that. But this model, I put everything into it, so it has to apply, but that isn't true. So there's an accountability piece, there's a wisdom that accepting is ultimately a choice, and it's not required just because someone has presented themselves as helpful, that there could be more to the story.
It reminds me of what Kim says all the time, of operating in choice, of being in choice at as much as possible. Kim remains a coach that works with us, and we work with her as well. And that's one of the things that really stuck out to me when I first started working with her, was when she would say that. I was like, okay, let me know more about what that means. How do I actually put that into action? Saying it is cool, and I understand it logically, but how do I make that fit into my real life? And it doesn't always feel good. So sometimes it's uncomfortable. To make certain choices.
It is. And that layer of conversation then comes down to acknowledging themes and patterns when things are hard. Until we can actually acknowledge where it is we go, or what it is we do, or what happens physically or mentally or emotionally, that awareness, that honesty, that candor is in fact often a good source. It's a source of informing the choice that we make, because we're inherently making choices. Some of our patterns are to walk away.
Exactly.
We're making choices. So being aware, acknowledging those themes and patterns it's a database. It's a database to choose.
I think at times we feel like our choice is taken from us, or we feel like something else goes here, so we no longer have that choice. But I'm like, yeah, there's still a choice. You may not be able to choose outside of the action, but you can choose to agree, not agree, to be comfortable, not comfortable. Like there's a choice still within it, even though you feel like your power may have been taken out of it. There's still always that choice in there of even reaction to it is a choice, and that kind of, and it's interesting because I know I all the times be like, no, my choice was taken from me. It's like, not really.
Yeah.
Who asked
We're all,
it?
like, yeah, we're always in choice, and there's I don't remember who said it, but like choose your heart, right?
Mhm.
So you can choose to sit back and observe someone being rude and not say anything, or you can choose to say, "Excuse me,"
Mhm.
you know? Um,
Yeah.
and so in essence, we're always in choice. I feel like sometimes we get into a habit or a custom or a ritual or a conditioned response, but it's still a choice,
Mhm.
Still a choice. Yep.
even if
And
it's a little unconscious or out of habit, like driving home. Sometimes you don't remember driving home because your mind's doing all these things, but your body's driving. You didn't hit anybody. And you stopped at all the lights.
Made all the
Um,
choices.
yeah, you made all the
the
choices,
choices.
but it wasn't conscious. It wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Also, I see somebody watching live from Facebook. Feel free to drop a comment and say hi. Thank you for
Mhm.
watching and tuning in live. We appreciate you.
Yes.
We
Yes.
love your
So that
comments.
was,
Join in.
sorry, Laura, what?
Oh, I was saying we love your comments and to join in.
Yes,
So yeah.
yes, absolutely. It's a
Yes. Yeah.
conversation. So number
Hmm.
4 was accepting the help that we've
Yes.
asked for.
Yes. Yes. And then number 5 is acting, acting in the moment, acting for the future. This whole idea of proactive. And Laura, you spoke to it a bit. A lot of the time, there are instances where we're coming from a place of reaction, where things are happening all around us and we are in a state of reaction. But there are opportunities to step back. There are opportunities to be a little bit proactive and personalized in how we create that path. So really that 5th piece for me was acting, and I'm still continuing to find myself in situations where I have to decide how to act because I'm not sure what to do or because I've been here before and I made a different choice. But my 5th struggle as an entrepreneur, the 5th paradigm where there is always a, how's this going to go, is the question of whether to act. And then if I choose, it's when do I act. But my overall conversation is really staying proactive in that decision, staying personalized, because where I am today is very different than where I was 5 years ago, is very different from where my future self will be. But that ability to act, which is scary in itself sometimes, and even if you act
Yeah.
in your mind, sometimes we can act mentally before acting physically. Sometimes we act and respond emotionally, and it goes from there. But for me, acting in the moment or in the future has been another continual place of,
Yes.
yay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the
Because
action is the part, and we don't need to act on everything. I think there comes again, when we were talking about like somebody offers help or we've asked for help or this, then we have this need to accept and act on all of it sometimes. And without a little bit of that discernment in there of not everything is for me or maybe not in this moment. And I know I get overwhelmed with choices. So I'm one that's like, you need to limit my choices to 2 or 3 because anything above that sends me down major rabbit holes. But people will throw things at me and then I'm in that, whoa, like, oh, I love all this help, or I love all this stuff, but it becomes a huge overwhelm and kind of my body reacts in the same way it would as if I hadn't gotten the help to begin with. The overwhelm will still be there. So there's definitely a balance there and knowing like, oh yeah, I'm going to act on that and maybe
Yeah.
not on this right now or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And you made a really good point that sometimes the outcome is to be in a different spot. But if there are so many choices that my state is paralysis, I'm actually where I started. So that ability to be like, well, what's the point? If the point is to move in a proactive, forward focused intention, this isn't forward focused. I'm stuck because so then it's a question of, okay, how do I ask for help to get unstuck? Is it a conversation? Is it a friend? But if I've labeled, oh my gosh, I'm stuck again. My pattern is to see all these options, to think they're all great, to believe in them all, and get stuck. So
Yeah.
how can I, going back to that, how do I ask for help? How do I accept the help that's relevant so I can act again? But that's those 5 pillars have been the engine, the momentum in my
Mhm.
business journey so far.
That's
So
wonderful.
one of the things I'm curious about. So you've mentioned
Forward focused movements, yes.
forward focus movement. Is there ever a time where you can just be where you are?
Yes, you can be, I can
And
be
that
where
is forward focused,
that
right?
is forward focused because sometimes in being, I am in rest because I know that what's coming ahead is going to take energy that I don't have unless I rest. Yes, forward focus does not mean on the go in my vocabulary. Forward focus means looking ahead. So again, if it's I have this crazy weekend coming up, it's full of talks, and as someone who may recharge on my own, I'm not talking to anybody for 2 days before that event because the forward focused awareness is to know what I need to be. Also, if I tend to be someone who won't put myself out there necessarily, my pattern is to not speak highly of myself. I'm going to collaborate a little more than usual so those other people who speak well of the work we do will help me. But absolutely, forward focus doesn't have to be high energy. Forward focus can be of integrity and stillness. It can be taking time to recognize themes and patterns. It can be practicing supportable habits. Like, what are the things that help me show up in a way that is of service to myself and others? So, yes, if that was at all a connotation, forward focused movements can be emotional, they can be mental.
Mm,
It's recognizing there's more. There's more to come.
yeah.
So how can I be there? How can I prepare for there while I'm here?
Yeah. And that's the place I was coming from because I've been through um, a time period where I couldn't be as productive because
Mm,
I'm one of those people that has to be productive. That's where my worth, if I'm not productive, right?
mm,
And that was the story. Many years ago, I was working with another coach, and she was like, "Tell me, that's a story you're telling yourself that in order to be successful, you must be productive." And that isn't necessarily true as far as, not just our inner work, but also,
mm.
in our business. But but I was able still to be forward,
Yes,
right? Movement in the fact that I was preparing, I was thinking, I was learning to meditate and learning to receive
yes, yes,
what I needed to receive in order to do the work I'm going to be doing, to
yes,
prepare me as a person, as an individual,
yes,
to embody my calling fully.
yes, yep.
So there could possibly be a period where you aren't being productive. I'm talking to those people out there who are always on the go, doing, 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 doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, and rest
Doing
is
isn't necessarily productive. I think we get mixed in that, and I'm guilty of that. If I look productive, we're good. And I think I learned that in corporate. Like, as long as I look like I'm being busy, that's
Yes.
the perception. I'm good to go because we needed to perceive that we were busy and we were productive. Now, if you look at numbers and things like that, you would know better. But the truth of the matter is that we always appeared to be productive, or we knew there would be conversations. Well, I took out of corporate that same thing. Like, you always have to appear to be active and busy and in action and doing and all of that. So sitting down all of a sudden and not doing was a huge challenge. Like,
yeah,
no, I don't. And being like, I don't want to anymore. And really sticking to that was a big challenge, and with those ideas of, growing up, well, you always need to be doing something. What are you doing? That's always the question we always, what are you doing?
yeah. And
Nothing.
on
Hey,
and rest, yes, and rest is an action. So a couple of themes that have come up.
Yes.
So busy and productive are often very different in terms of their the definition. Yes, you can be busy and quite active, but productive is a subjective term. Sometimes I'm productive because I've made the most of the relationships around me. I've done right by myself physically, emotionally, and
Yes.
mentally today. So again, a couple of things I like to pull out of conversations with people is what Angelique said, that taking care of ourselves, we have a physical experience, an emotional and a mental all day, every day. So even realizing that this I looked busy because I sat at my desk all day. My body was not designed for sitting all day. So while the mental approach and the mental appearance, I've suffered physically. So it's that conversation of effort and ease and suffering and kind of not suffering, but ultimately productive and busy are different. Productive can be quite personal, and rest is an action.
Yeah.
It was a
love
hard
that.
thing to learn. I definitely rest now. And I got
Laura,
forced.
Laura taught me how to power nap.
Yeah, I'm a napper. I love naps, and people are like, "What?" And I'm like, "I don't know why I fought them as a child. Like, I have zero. I will
Right.
go in and take a nap in a heartbeat. I schedule 20 to 30 minutes of just sitting on the couch, and even if it's just resting and going internal and meditating a little bit or listening to whatever my inner voice is saying,
Yeah.
but a lot of times it does break down to at least 10, 15 minutes of actual sleep, and
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. And it was a lot to get past that. Like I'm not done with all my work today, but it's okay to go sit on that couch and take a nap or watch a little bit of TV or whatever, because what I also know is if I'm longer than an hour or two at my computer working, it becomes unproductive. Slowly it starts to break down where I'm like, I'm in rabbit holes, I'm on Google, or I'm somewhere else other than working. And then I'm like,
Yes.
oh, get up, walk away, because
Time
now
for a
you're
break.
lost all focus. Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's an important F word, focus. That idea that when we commit to focus and it's not necessarily where we are anymore, our present and productive capabilities are gone. I've been sitting at this table too long. I'm doing all the things that again, so if my hour at the computer was supposed to result in X, Y, and Z, I'm doing ABC right now with a little bit of LMNO and right? So there's that question of taking that break is a chance to reset. And so the stores, the energy base is recharged in a way. So you're actually, again, thinking at the end of the day, if I want to know that I got these done, thinking about this life event coming, if I prepare in these ways, after I make it to the other side or halfway through, I will have had a little more stability, a little more strength, a bit more stamina to show up again and again, because things keep happening again and again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
It what you were saying, Laura, about the busy, right? So in corporate, I used to work with a gal and we had cubicles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And her cubicle was always a wreck, like papers and binders and all kinds just stacked everywhere. And she always seemed hurried and in a rush and stressed out, you know. And I'm a neat Nick, so I always kept my desk at the end of the day, I reset. So when I come in, I'm ready to get to work right away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but when it came time to give someone work, you never gave it to her. Not never, but they'd look at her and go, yeah, she's too busy. Hey, Angelique, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, and I thought that, I'm like, man, that's a genius idea.
And it works.
In corporate, you know, like to stay kind of fly under the radar kind of thing. But it's just a funny story that it reminded me of. But I so appreciate you, Haze. You remind me, and I have to tell you this. Have you heard of Dr. Bertice Berry?
I have not.
I'm going to drop a link for Dr. Bertice Berry in the show notes because you remind me of her very much, and I adore her. And she's amazing. She's just amazing. I'd love for you to check her out and let me know what you think. I think you guys would get along really well and have some wonderful conversations. But
how did you come across her? How did you come, just out of curiosity, how did you?
I know I met her somewhere. I met her in person somewhere, and then I started following her on LinkedIn. And it was a professional conference or seminar or something.
Okay.
And so we connected on LinkedIn, and then she started doing live or recorded video on LinkedIn. And her stories are she's just so good. She's a great storyteller. She's an author. I think she's a sociologist or a philosopher, something like that. But anyway, I highly recommend that you guys go out and check out Dr. Bertice Berry, especially now. She's had some really, really good thoughts in the current situation. And we are going to drop all of your information in the show notes.
Yes.
So you can connect with Haze. You can check her out.
Yeah.
Email her, ask her questions about today's conversation.
Yes.
But at least connect and follow. Laura, I'm lost. What are we doing next?
Well, we do need to introduce the guest for next week, and we do have our guest introduce the next guest.
Yep.
So we've sent the information over. So Haze, if you want to introduce our next guest for next week.
I will do that now. Yes. Linda Binns is an experienced energy coach with over 26 years of empowering professional women to embrace their true selves and thrive. As an introvert, empath, and highly sensitive person, Linda understands the deep impact of energy on our lives. Her personal journey from overcoming low self-esteem, divorce, and even homelessness has shaped her compassionate coaching approach. Now, as the author of 8 books, she helps high-sensory, heart-centered women unlock their full potential. Get ready for an inspiring conversation with Linda Binns.
Yes.
Wonderful. We're excited to have her. See, like we say, you guys plan this yourselves. Like you schedule, the next person schedules, and it all just starts to fall into place. We've noticed the synergy just keeps flowing week after week, which is so cool.
Yeah. And it's a compliment to your process, because in the conversations you're facilitating and the people who are recommending or referring guests to you, there's clearly a theme, there's clearly a value to the conversation, and the right people are finding each other in the right order, in a relevant order that construes a certain conversation. So compliments right back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So that's next week's guest, Linda Binns. Monday at 12 Eastern, we will be here live again. Thank you again for the watching live on YouTube. We appreciate that you guys are tuning in live, but you can always catch the replays and all the places. We're live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and now Facebook. We started out live on Facebook, and then we went to LinkedIn, and now we're back on all 3 places. So, and then the only real announcement that we have is we are in the process of building our free membership for our listeners, and super excited about that. And go out to ftcpodcast.com to get signed up and get on the wait list. We're going to be looking for beta testers and things like that. So, and we'll be, offering all kinds of goodies. Well, I'm so excited about the membership. That's always been in my mind, like the goal, the like we've arrived kind of thing, was to create a real community of people that are like-minded, to support and love on each other and collaborate. So we're super excited that that's finally coming together this year, hopefully sooner than later. And I guess that's it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Haze, thank you again so much for being here. It's been a pleasure having this time with you. And then we will see you guys all next week on Monday at noon. Bye.
Bye.
The cat's sitting on my mouse, so I have to go.